Here's what nobody wants to admit about Walter White's transformation. It never actually happened. The great parlor game of Breaking Bad analysis is the search for the moment. The precise instant Walter White shed his mild-mannered shell and embraced his inner warlord. As if the man woke up one morning, adjusted his glasses, and announced, "Today, I choose monstrousness." The exercise persists, despite the show making the transformation painstakingly incremental and, frankly, impossible to miss. One popular candidate is the infamous non-go-kart outing with Jesse Pinkman, a moment that, in its quiet cruelty, captures Walter at his most dismissive. Jesse practically begs for a shred of human connection, and Walter responds with the emotional generosity of a brick wall. Yes, he had errands to run. Yes, the car wash required attention. What he did not require was compassion, follow-through, or even the basic courtesy of honoring his own rain check. The first season version of Walter may not have been a go-kart enthusiast either, but he certainly hadn't yet learned to treat Jesse like a defective household appliance. Other moments arrive with more theatrical flair. There's the grim spectacle of Walter forcing alcohol on his son, because nothing says paternal devotion quite like a whiskey-fueled dominance display. Liquor merely amplified what was already there, a toxic blend of arrogance and latent cruelty. The same unpleasant brew surfaces in the excruciating marital assault that viewers often try to euphemize away, as though semantics could dull its ugliness. The scene is revolting, the implications unmistakable, and the fan impulse to vilify Skylar in its aftermath nothing short of baffling. It takes a special kind of narrative blindness to watch a man terrorize his wife and then conclude she's the problem. Of course, Walter's moral descent hardly begins in the domestic sphere. Long before large-scale atrocities enter the picture, he is already crossing lines with startling ease. Coercing Jesse into cooking by threatening to turn him in, killing Emilio, executing Crazy Eight, and returning to family life with unnerving quickness. The contrast is stark when placed beside Hank Schrader's panic attacks after killing Tuco. Hank grapples with humanity, while Walter files his guilt away like a completed lab report. The show's gallery of sins offers plenty of debatable entries. Killing Mike Ehrmantraut, however, is one of the least ambiguous. It is the purest distillation of Walter's ego, petty, vain, and entirely avoidable. Even Walter acknowledges he could have gone directly to Lydia for information. But why take the reasonable route when the unreasonable one offers an opportunity for domination? This is the moment rationalizations die, and the villain steps into full view. Then there is Jane Margolis, a fan favorite moral crossroads. She dies while Walter stands in the doorway, watching, calculating, and deciding. Interpretations vary. Some argue her death, while convenient for him, may have spared Jesse from a self-destructive spiral. Others maintain that no benevolent calculus can erase the fact that he let a young woman suffocate because it simplified his life. The truth, characteristically, lies somewhere between. Walter's motives are part self-interest, part paternalistic delusion. He sees Jane and Jesse as two addicts spiraling toward oblivion. Hardly a wrong assessment. But his solution is a masterclass in ethical bankruptcy. A sizable faction insists the true turning point predates even that. According to this view, the seeds of Heisenberg sprouted when Walter rejected Gretchen and Elliot's offer to pay for his cancer treatment. The gesture would have resolved everything cleanly, and therein lay the problem. Walter had no interest in clean resolutions. His pride demanded something operatic. Something that allowed him to tell himself he was forging an empire as an act of sacrifice, rather than self-aggrandizement. That same pride erupts again when he learns his cancer is in remission. News that drives him to punch a paper towel dispenser with all the grace of an angry adolescent. Another camp argues he was always Heisenberg, merely disguised as a high school chemistry teacher. The evidence is plentiful. The bitterness toward Elliot Schwartz, the simmering resentment toward his family life, the righteous fury over every perceived slight. The cancer diagnosis simply liberated him, offering moral cover for desires he'd long kept corked. It explains his triumphant strut after outmaneuvering Tuco with fulminated mercury, a moment often cited as the first real taste of power he ever enjoyed. The high was immediate, intoxicating, and, as it turned out, addictive. Critics, who search for a single definitive transformation, miss the point entirely. Walter White does not switch from man to monster like a light bulb. He toggles, oscillates, bargains with himself, and occasionally dons the mask of decency when it suits him. Even late in the series, ostensible flickers of humanity appear, but they are stage lighting, brief, controlled, and never bright enough to obscure the truth. The reality is that Walter's villainy is not a sudden mutation. It is a slow unearthing. The show uncovers him layer by layer, revealing a man who was never quite the protagonist fans wished him to be. He wasn't corrupted by the world of meth. He discovered in it the stage he always wanted. Every chilling moment, from the death of Jane to the murder of Mike, to the quiet humiliations he inflicts on those closest to him, belongs to the same man. A man who did not fall from grace, but rather stepped confidently off the ledge, eager to see how powerful the free fall might feel. There is, ultimately, no single moment when Walter White becomes Heisenberg. The more uncomfortable truth is that he always was.